Michael Wolff, you depict a chaotic White House in the period that you were observing it. And one just wonders whether the White House isn't always chaotic in the first phase of a presidency. Is there any reason to believe it's any better now?
Do you mean, is there any reason to believe it's better now since I left the White House?
Indeed,
in its new incarnation?
Indeed.
Well, I have no reason to believe that it would be, since the central problem with the White House is Donald Trump. Now, he did appoint a new chief of staff, John Kelly, who seems to have a better hold on the fractured nature of the warring parties in the White House. But in truth, it's actually gotten odder because almost everybody has left the White House. So the people left, the president's two senior advisors, and this is the two senior advisors to the president of the United States, are a woman by the name of Hope Hicks. She's 28 or 29. She's a former junior fashion PR person. And Stephen Miller, again, you know, a young man with almost no, with little experience, certainly no gravitas, and by most accounts, a rather peculiar person. These are the president's two senior most advisors. So I would actually say that in many ways it is worse now than it was through up until October, when I was deeply engaged in what was going on.
What about the Jivanka? I mean, the kids, as you describe them.
And they are still there. They're largely occupied at this point with their own legal difficulties. So they have to some degree taken a step back. And in a sense, that's that may be a plus for the White House. But they're still left in the same situation, which a White House in which everybody who's working there, except the most inexperienced people, does not want to be there. Doesn't want to be there because this is negatively impacting their own careers, and doesn't want to be there because it's pretty hellish to work for Donald Trump.
If we go back to the origins of writing this book, it's pretty clear that Trump kind of liked you. I mean, he called you spontaneously, either very soon after he got in there or just before he got into the White House. And did he know that you would write a book about him?
Yes, of course. Yes, and I've known Trump for 20 years. You know, certainly not, we have not been intimate friends, but we have been very pleasant acquaintances for 20 years. Yes, I told him that I wanted to write a book. He was completely uninterested in the idea of a book, but basically said, sure, okay, knock yourself out.
What we really want to know is, has he been in contact with you since, particularly since the book's been published?
You mean the President of the United States?
Yeah.
Well, his lawyers have been in contact with me. He's suing me, so I suppose that's some form of contact. He's tweeted nonstop about me, so I feel that even if we have not been in one-to-one contact, we've been in some kind of clearly cosmic contact.
So you and Bannon are really in the same boat now?
Well, that's certainly would be a peculiar boat, but we are both at outside of the at a distance from the White House at this point. Yes.
Would you regard him, that is, the President of the United States, as fit for office?
Again, you know, and I've taken pains to point this out. This is not about my impressions of the president. This is a book about the impressions of the people around him. And the people around him certainly do not believe that he is fit for to be the President of the United States.
Now, you said that you've known him for 20 years, and I wonder, therefore, whether you can contrast at all how he was 20 years ago with how he is now.
Well, I think that's something very hard to do because he wasn't the president of the United States. Donald Trump has been Donald Trump. I mean, we've all seen this. This is not a mystery. He's a show off and a playboy and and in almost every respect, not anybody would think of as a serious person. And then he became the president of the United States, and that has a whole series, to put it mildly, of other implications. So yes, in a way, he is still the same old Donald Trump, but now he is the president of the United States, and I think we are all coming to terms with what exactly that means.
One of the words you did not use in that list was racist. It's pretty clear that there are a lot of people who believe that the President of the United States is currently a racist.
I actually, there's an interesting bit in my book in which Steve Bannon is trying to say that he doesn't believe that Donald Trump is an anti-Semite, but he wouldn't be sure about the other things, meaning that that Bannon actually thought that there was a good possibility he was, in fact, a racist. Trump's recent statements in recent days are wholly consistent with a set of attitudes that most people would now call racist.
So, in other words, the idea that he might regard places in countries in Africa, Haiti and other places, as what he called shitholes would be entirely consistent with the man you know.
Entirely consistent. I think it's very clear that Donald Trump is, at the very least, uncomfortable with people who are not white Europeans.
Obviously, to some extent, you have written an unbelievably readable book. And I'm just wondering whether, in a sense, in order to render it so readable, you have been broad brush.
I don't know how to answer that. I suppose that one had to take 7 months and reduce them into 325 pages. So there are parts of this that I have skirted over and parts of this that I have focused in on. I think my goal in the book was always, I'm in the middle of this and I want to bring the reader into the middle of this. I want the reader to be able to experience what's this thing that is going on in the middle of American public life, actually for the entire world. It seemed imperative to give everyone a sense of what really is going on here. So I suppose, yes, I employed a variety of writing techniques and conventions, but I think when you read the book, you feel you really see it before your eyes.
There's a lot of talk at the moment around him about mental health, but it actually seems from your book as if actually what is surprising the generals and the other people who surround him is that this is Donald Trump, and from what you're saying, that's what he's always been. There's no mental health there. It's all about just who he is.
I think, yes, I completely agree with this. This is Donald Trump in full. But, one of the things that people say about the White House is that it tends to, whoever you are and whatever your virtues are and your flaws are, it tends to intensify everything. So I think that we have Donald Trump, who we've always known what that is, but Donald Trump in the White House is a kind of Donald Trump on steroids. And I think that can be, in any reasonable person's view, alarming.
And we learn he doesn't read and he doesn't listen, but he has to make decisions as the President of the United States. How does he make decisions if he doesn't do the former?
Well, I mean, that's the question that everyone around him has to deal with on a daily, if not minute-by-minute basis. How do you get information to someone who doesn't read and doesn't listen? And they've invented a whole range of strategies for doing this. You funnel the information through the television shows that he watches. You funnel it through the rich guys he speaks to at night. But it remains the central conundrum, and I would say the central crisis of this White House. He just doesn't know enough, isn't interested enough to make decisions, certainly in any conventional way.
America has an envied constitution. You are a democracy, and that democracy has yielded Donald Trump. What does it say about the state of the United States at this moment?
Well, I think it probably presents some existential questions. At the same time, I would also say, on a possibly optimistic note, that part of this democracy is a set of very strong institutions. A Justice Department, for instance, which has nearly, might seem to have backed him into a corner, or seems very close to having backed him into a corner. You have an intelligence community which is, has, well, I think also backed him into a corner. You have a series of institutions in the American democracy which are not giving way. The courts are not giving way. I mean, he cannot be the Donald Trump that he has always been, which is a huckster, a salesman, a guy who just gets away with everything. He is I think in very profound ways at this point surrounded.
He is a celebrity, and there is talk
please.
of another following him, though a very different character, Oprah. What do you make of looking for another high-profile celebrity, whether good or bad?
I think my view was that Donald Trump is an anomaly. He happened for lots of reasons. Among those reasons are an enormous frustration with politics as we've known it, with politicians as we have known them. I look at it as something of an experiment, and I think that every day more and more people come to the conclusion that it is a failed experiment. I do not expect that we will try to repeat this experiment.
But will he last for this section of the experiment, i.e. until the next election?
I go with Steve Bannon's calculation on this. 33% chance he'll be impeached, 33% chance he'll resign under the shadow of the 25th Amendment, and a 33% chance he will limp to the end of his term, but a 0% chance that he will have another term or even run for another term.
Michael Wolff, thank you very much indeed for talking to us.